Welcome back to the Malt Miller YouTube channel. Today we are looking at the IceMaster G20.1 Glycol Chiller.
Rob, the biggest thing that you can do to improve the quality of your homebrewed beer is to control the temperature of fermentation, right? Now, why is that?
So all yeast has a range of temperatures that it likes to ferment beer in.
Yep.
What we're looking at is to be able to ferment beer out completely without producing any off flavours. Adding on to that, we also want to be able to brew any type of beer at any time of the year.
For example, lager, right? Now, if we want to make a lager in the middle of summer because we love to smash pint of ice cold lager in the summer, well, actually that throws up a challenge, right? Because most lager yeasts like to operate in that sort of 8 to 12 degree range.
Exactly that, yeah. And the Belgian beers require higher temperatures, and loads of different beers require different temperatures, but with a way of controlling the temperature of that fermentation, you've basically got any beer style nailed at any time of the year. I don't believe you started with a Glycol Chiller for temperature control fermentation, did you? How did you go?
Well, I actually approached temperature control by building a fermentation fridge.
Yeah.
Now, it's a really popular way to get started with temperature control. We've got an awesome video on how to do that, which I'll put a link to up here. But ultimately, what we're doing is introducing a temperature controller such as an Inkbird.
Yeah.
We plug the fridge in to want the cooling side of that, and then we have a heat source such as a heat mat or a heat belt or a heat tube that is also in the fridge, and it gives you a very successful but fairly rudimentary way of controlling that fermentation. It has some distinct positives, right? It's fairly approachable in terms of price point.
Yeah, definitely.
It's, relatively easy to set up. But the biggest limitation with it really is that you've only got space for one of those in most circumstances. If you want to do a couple of fermentations at the same time, you've got to get a second fridge.
Yeah.
And
you're certainly not going to put a large fermenter in there.
No,
that's a definite limiting factor.
Using, like a big larder fridge, and again, it's cumbersome. It takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of years, and I'm actually using Glycol now at home because of the benefits that it gives me. Glycol Chiller has loads of benefits, which we'll come on to shortly. But before we get into that, again, it's worth us talking about maybe what some of the options are. And actually, first of all, what is a Glycol Chiller and what does it do?
Okay, so we're looking at a unit, normally quite a compact size. So we're looking at a unit that's smaller than a fridge, but works very much like a fridge that's cooling a bath of glycol.
Yeah, and that glycol, it's a solution of 100% glycol, normally diluted with like distilled water or bottled water or something like that, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. And the glycol's there so that we can bring the temperature of the liquid down below zero, so that it's a really efficient way of cooling a larger volume of liquid.
And then that liquid exits the chiller through hoses, and those hoses are then connected to a chilling solution on a fermenter, such as like a stainless steel coil, or
maybe or a jacket that surrounds a stainless steel jacket that surrounds the fermenter.
So the Glycol Chiller will then cool the wort inside. Now, some Glycol Chillers have the option of adding heat into that as well, and we're going to come on to that shortly. But first and foremost, a Glycol Chiller is a unit that is like a fridge, chilling down a liquid solution that is then pumped through something to cool another vessel down.
So there's various different Glycol Chillers on the market, and they range from pretty much the most basic is literally just that chilling unit where you have a bath of glycol that's being kept cold, and then onto that you have to add a pump and a temperature control system.
Yeah, and a heater as well if you want to add that warming side of it as well, yeah?
Exactly that. Then there's other Glycol Chillers that are on the market that they're a complete plug and play solution. They're in their own ecosystem, and get them out of the box, put them together, that's it, that's it, they're working. And they're a fantastic solution.
Yeah, and for anybody that wants a literal out of the box, couple of buttons, app controlled solution, that's the way forward, right? Because it's very user friendly. With that though comes sometimes a little bit more cost involved. So the third option that we're going to talk about today is something that sort of sits in the middle, right?
It does,
It's quite
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
How would you describe what we're talking about today, Rob, which is the IceMaster G20 from Kegland?
Okay, one thing first is what I'd like to say is what we mean by plug and play. So for a plug and play system, I would say you assemble it all, you hit the buttons and it's there working straight away.
Yeah.
All right, that's plug and play. What we've got with this is plug and play as far as cooling is concerned, but it's also got a heating relay on it as well.
Cool. Okay. So we do have the option to both heat and cool our fermenter, but it's a little bit more involved in terms of setup and understanding how things work, right?
It is if you want the heating as well. If you want just the cooling, works out the box straight away.
Let's take a closer look then at some of the features that are packed into the G20.1 Glycol Chiller from Kegland.
Let's take a look at the tank size first. So it's actually a 16-litre tank in here.
Yeah.
And Kegland recommend having a 20% glycol solution in there, which is actually really handy because we sell glycol in 3 litres, which is exactly what you need.
Yeah.
So 3 litres of glycol in, top the tank up. It's a sight glass on the front, which allows you to see, and it's actually using their Durotype fitting, so it's dead easy to set up. They're just push fit fittings with the tubing. You can see exactly when it's full. That part of it's absolutely dead easy.
Well, and also the big benefit of being able to see where you are in terms of level is when you connect another fermenter, for example.
Exactly that.
The glycol is going to exit here. The glycol mix is going to exit here. Fill the jacket or the coil, so you will see that drop, and it's going to help you think about when you might need to top it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, these run better. They need to be as full as possible.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, and that's added just by lifting the lid and pouring the glycol in through the port there, yeah?
Straight in, yeah.
Fab.
Yeah, you just need a funnel and it just goes straight in.
Nice. And then once we've filled this, we plug it in, turn it on. Is it good to go, or do we need to do anything to set the temperature, or?
First things first, as with any fridge or glycol chiller, it wants to be set in position and it wants to be left alone for 24 hours.
Okay, fab.
It's got refrigerant in it and compressors, and they don't like to be moved and then turned straight on. So we need to make sure that this is left standing for 24 hours.
Yep.
There is 3 temperature controllers on this glycol chiller.
Yeah.
There's 2 on the front, and they are for controlling your fermentation.
Okay. Yeah.
There's 1 on the back that controls the temperature of the glycol mixture inside the tank.
Ah, yeah, I can see that. It's on the back here, right?
Yeah, it's an STC 1000. We used to use them back in the day for making temperature controllers. It's a really robust temperature controller, and all it's there to do is to control the temperature of the glycol in the tank.
Right.
Now, with that 20% solution, we're good to go down to -8, which is plenty for what we're wanting to do.
Okay, fab. So you set that to the desired temperature. That's cooling the glycol mixture inside. I'm with you. Now, when it comes to getting that glycol to start going around our fermenters,
Yep.
where we go next?
Actually, this is the beauty of this unit, because it is normally when you would have to add pumps and add temperature controllers, actually they are built into this unit.
So this has got pumps already in and the temperature controllers.
Exactly that.
Fab,
So
nice.
on the front, we have got 2 temperature controllers, so we can control 2 different fermenters, and we can have them sat at 2 different temperatures.
Yes, okay, nice.
All right, so we can have a fermenter lager in, for example, and we can have another fermenter with an ale in it that we're trying to keep at 18 degrees.
Yep, nice.
And then when we want to cold crash either one of those, bosh, we can do it.
And we just set the temperature by using the little up and down arrows on each channel.
They're almost self-explanatory.
Yep.
It really is easy to use. We've got ports on the front for each temperature control to plug in the temperature probe.
Yep.
So that would sit in the thermowell of each of your fermenters.
Yep.
And then we just dial in the temperature that we want to keep to on the screen on the front, and the pump on the glycol chiller will toggle on and off to keep it at the desired temperature.
So that's the features then for cooling.
Yeah.
Now we need to touch on how you can use the IceMaster G20 for heating as well, because it does have the capability to control the hot side of temperature control as well, right? Now, it's important at this point that we do point out that neither Rob or I are electricians. If you are looking into this and this setup for heating as well as cooling, you might need to have a little bit of an understanding about electrical work. If you're unsure, speak to a competent professional. Otherwise, do some research, okay? Because it is fairly basic, the work that's involved to set this up, but we do need to make sure that you understand that there is a little bit more involvement than maybe some of the other systems that are available out there.
This is where we're saying it's not plug and play, all right? There is a little bit of electric work to be done. My opinion is if you can wire a plug, you can certainly sort this out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at how this works. Now, the temperature controller at the front has two sets of relays, doesn't it? One for cold side and then one for hot.
Exactly that. It's exactly like an Inkbird, for example.
Yeah.
It just toggles between heating and cooling.
Yeah, and it's got a relay in there that acts as a switch for that temperature control.
This is the bit that we need to explain really well. So it acts as a switch. It doesn't power the heat source.
Yes.
Then this is where the electric work comes into it.
Now, if we lift open the iceMaster G20, inside there's a metal housing which simply comes off with a few screws. So we've already undone the screws because you don't need to see us do that. And underneath you get access to the two control boards. On the right hand side of both the control boards, there are two little spade adapters, okay? And what those do is they act as a switch, okay, with the relay that's on the board to turn off that heat source or turn it on, you know, depending on the temperature that you've set. Now, in terms of wiring this up, Rob, how do we go about that?
Okay, so we have to splice the live wire on the heat source.
Yep.
And we take two tabs off that directly go onto the back of those boards.
Using spade connectors, yeah?
It's dead easy using spade connectors, yeah.
And then once you've done that, you then plug your heat source into its usual, you know, 13 amp, 3-pin socket, whatever it is, dependent on your location and your region. And then when you hit the desired temperature parameter, it will turn on that heat source.
It will toggle between the Glycol Chiller and the heat source, so we can have a fermenter that's at 20 degrees in our ambient temperature of 15 degrees, for example, or indeed the other way round. We can have ambient temperature of 25 degrees, yet we're lagering at 10 degrees.
Yes. One other thing, it's really important to note that you can do this with both channels. So there's two sets in here, so you could have two heat sources as well as the two cooling channels, which for us makes this a really awesome, you know, solution for Glycol, because you've got all the pumps built in, all your cooling, all your temperature control. All you need to add is some form of heat source if you're looking to gain that benefit as well.
It's also worth noting at this stage that that's actually a 10 amp supply for the heating as well. So although most heat belts or that sort of nature of heating is a really quite a low wattage, this will actually go up to a 10 amp supply, which is big.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, you're going to have loads of heating solutions available to you with this.
Exactly that.
In front of us then, we have just some of the solutions that you can use to add a heat source to your fermentation. Rob, talk us through some of these.
We've got the heat belt now. We've been using those for absolutely ages. Simple heat belt, but now obviously we've got the opportunity to be able to control their temperature.
Yep.
As the same with the heat mat.
Yeah.
Sit a fermenter on top of it. Now we can control the temperature.
And these both add a direct heat source to your fermenter, right?
Exactly that.
As you said, if you've got like a plastic fermenter bucket or a flat bottomed fermenter, the heat mat is a great option. You can use those to heat a void as well, but they're not particularly efficient. And the heat belt offers the ability to strap it around a fermenter, which actually, for use with the Glycol Chiller that we've been looking at, that's really pertinent.
It is, and actually so is this. So this is a ultra low watt density heat mat. Now what that means is it's large, it's a big piece that wraps completely around a fermenter, but it adds really, really gentle heat.
Yeah.
Now that's really important because with a lot of the modern fermenters being the PET, you can't put a heat belt around them because the heating's too direct. These are actually designed for plastic fermenters. They work with other fermenters as well, but they are actually designed for the plastic fermenters. That's a great tool for heating those.
Now looking over on this side of the table, what we have here, Rob, is the Brewtools sanitary heating element. So it's designed by Brewtools to work with their range of uni tanks, jacketed ones, or the mini uni, anything that's got a 2-inch tri-clamp port on it, because this is submerged into the wort, whereas what we've talked about over here is in contact with the vessel.
Yeah.
It's important to note that it's just because it's a Brewtools product, though, it doesn't mean it's only compatible with Brewtools fermenters.
No.
For example, we've got the new Brew-built fermenters.
Yep.
It would work perfectly with those as well.
And like you say, it's submerged in the wort, and it's going to gently keep the wort at the temperature that's dialed in on the temperature controller.
Exactly. Now it's 500 watt, so it's a bit more beefy than some of the options over here. Now what that means is that actually this is a great solution for when we're looking at larger tanks, okay?
Yeah, I mean, we sell the F100, the 150, the 300 even, and this is the one that you need for those sort of size tanks.
Exactly. Next up, we're going to show you how easy it is to set up the IceMaster G20 with a fermenter for cooling. Now, Rob, we've chosen one of our 30 litre stainless steel fermenters, haven't we? Reason for that being?
Well, A, because it's such a fantastic product.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's set up with the stainless steel coil, which sits within the fermenting wort.
Yeah, and it's also got a really nice long thermal well in there for the temperature probe, right? So we get a really good accurate reading of the temperature of the wort fermenting inside the vessel.
Exactly. So the idea is that we send glycol around the coil that's inside the wort, therefore chilling it.
Yep. Now we filled the fermenter up with cold water. So Rob, what's the temperature saying on the front there? I mean, we'll check it with the temperature probe, but
12 degrees.
okay, so we're at 12 degrees.
Yeah, that's straight out of the tap, actually.
Yeah. Now, Rob, why don't you talk us through the configuration of John Guest fittings we've added to the chiller coil so that we can connect up the glycol tubing?
It's dead easy. The 10mm glycol tubing connects to the John Guest hose barbs. There's 1/2-inch BSP fittings on the top of the coil that this stainless fermenter ships with.
Yeah.
So we're simply using 1/2-inch female BSP fittings, basically.
Yeah.
All John Guest push fit.
Yeah, and we've got an elbow on there just to give us the angle that we want. You can configure it how you wish at home.
Yeah, it might be that the fermenter's on the floor and the glycol chiller's on a table, therefore you don't want the elbows, you want the straight up. So you configure it exactly your way.
Nice. And then what's the first thing we need to do?
The first thing we need to do is we have pre-filled the glycol chiller. We've added the glycol mixture to that. We've turned it on, and actually we're going to let it get right down to temperature first, because it puts a lot of stress on if it's trying to cool a fermenter at the same time as it's trying to cool the glycol inside.
Yeah, it's really interesting though. So this is running right now.
Yeah.
Now, you may or may not be able to hear this, but the compressor's running. I'm going to just, it's a really quiet unit, and in comparison to other glycol chillers that we've had experience with, this is significantly quieter.
I would say it's in comparison with a modern fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, to connect to our hoses, do you want to talk us through which way round we're doing this? Are we connecting it to the chiller first, or
No,
to
I
the
would
fermenter?
tend to connect to the fermenter first.
Okay.
And at this stage, it doesn't matter which way round our lines are, so we just choose one, push him on. Now, at this stage, I would say we're just pushing these on. However, in a at-home circumstance, I would say you want little tiny Jubilee clips to go on here.
Yeah, just to maintain that seal, right?
Yeah,
because we're going to
exactly.
get temperature fluctuation because the lines are going to be cold.
Yeah, I mean, these are a super tight fitting, and obviously they're barbs, so it doesn't want to come off, but just for peace of mind.
Yeah, nice. And we've gone with the lovely blue and red lines to denote which side is cold and which side is hot.
Exactly. So now we do need to know which way round it is, because we want the blue one, which is the cold side.
That's going to go on to the out on the glycol chiller.
The out on the glycol chiller, simply because it's easy to remember that the out from the glycol chiller is cooler than the red going back in.
Right, excellent. Before we move on to connecting this up though, we do need to pop the temperature probe in. Now, the IceMaster ships with 2 of these plug-in temperature probes, and on this fermenter, we just feed it straight down into the thermal well,
Yeah.
all the way to the bottom, so we get a nice accurate read from inside, okay? And then in a moment, we'll go on to connecting this up to the glycol chiller as well. if your fermenter doesn't have a thermal well, they're dead easy to fit. We sell various different size ones, lengths, all that kind of stuff. But say, for example, that's not an option for you. What you can do is just take that temperature probe onto the side of your fermenter, maybe using some, like, I don't know, maybe some sort of insulation, like bubble wrap, and then some good strong adhesive tape, just to make sure that you've got as best possible temperature reading as you can. Moving on then to connecting up our hoses and cables to the Glycol Chiller. Dead easy. We're just going to take the little cover protective caps off, yeah?
Yep. The first thing I want you to do is to connect the blue pipe to the out.
Yeah, so that's the one on the left-hand side of the chiller. On both channels, that you can see they're actually the opposite way around, so just bear that in mind when you're connecting them up. Okay, so that's on.
Red to the in.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's both on.
Plug the temperature probe in. At this stage, actually, it's worth noting that for maximum efficiency, we'd actually be insulating these lines.
Yeah, so you can use the slide on.
Pipe lagging, exactly that.
Excellent. So now turning on the Glycol Chiller, the channel we use.
Yeah, you notice it's been off right up to this stage, and it's off for a reason, because the likelihood is that as soon as you turn it on, it's going to activate the pump straight away. So we want it all connected up before that happens. So at this stage, we'll now turn it on. As you can see, the screen's lit up now, and the screen will be reading what the temperature is that the probe is reading.
Okay, yeah. So what are we saying at the moment?
15.4.
Great. So shall we set this to something much colder than that and see how we get on and how long it takes to bring this 5 gallons of water down to temperature?
Let's set it down to 1 degree. We're going to hold the up button. It then flashes. We're then going to use the down button and go all the way down to 1 degree. You can set this at whatever you like, whatever your fermentation profile. We're going to set it at 1 degree. As soon as I get to my desired temperature, I'm going to take my finger off the button. It's just going to remain flashing. And then after a few seconds, it goes solid again. And the compressor kicks in, and it will start to pump the glycol through the chiller.
Fab.
It's got a few features on it, one of which you'll notice is the compressor delay.
Yeah.
Now that's a really important one because it stops the compressor starting and stopping, starting and stopping. So it's actually set to a minute on this as default.
Yeah.
You can actually change that in the settings on the back on the STC 1000, but we're not going to worry about that. A minute's absolutely fine.
And that is purely built in to protect the working parts, the compressor, the pumps, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly that.
We're now going to set a timer and see just how long it takes to cool down 30 litres of water in our fermenter here down to a temperature close to 1 degree from its current point. So it's been around 20 minutes since we set all of our connections up with the Glycol Chiller and fermenter and set things going. You can see now that we are below 6 degrees. We're 5.8 degrees in 20 minutes.
That's absolutely great performance, and we could further enhance that by lagging the lines, and we need to add the neoprene jacket to the fermenter. That plays, both of those plays 2 roles. It makes it more efficient because we're keeping the heat exactly out or in, doing what we need to do, but also these absolutely run with condensation because of the temperature difference. Obviously that gets worse in the summer when we're trying to cool, so yeah, that really plays 2 parts.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts now, having had a really good play and test of the IceMaster G20.1, Rob?
I'm absolutely delighted with it, and actually it fits within the range of Glycol chillers really, really well, because we've now got a real range of different products that suit different people's needs.
Exactly, yeah. I love how this is, in many cases, get out of the box and get going, certainly when we're talking about chilling, but I also like the adaptability that you have to add your own heating source dependent on your current setup for fermenters, you know? And I think that just gives the user the scalability that they may need as they grow within the homebrewing hobby.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this could be used with a plastic bucket right up to a F300. So its range is absolutely fantastic. We've got a stack load of content on our YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Have a great brew.